He said, what went wrong here is you failed to make a decision. He said, in situations like this, it doesn't matter if you make the wrong decision or the right decision. What's most important is that you make a decision.
Join us as today's hosts, Anthony Zoller and Justine Malama, sit down with Reggie Stover of Henny Penny. Hear Reggie's incredible journey from military leadership to driving people-focused innovation in the food industry.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Prosper Brief. This morning, we're fortunate enough to have Reggie Stover from Henny Penny joining the podcast. Welcome, Reggie. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. And we have Justine Malama from Prosper joining as well. We were just talking to Reggie before we started recording today about the Prosper Accelerator program. You're intimately involved with the Prosper Accelerator program. And, if you could share some of your thoughts and how the program's going so far for the accelerators. And I think let's start too, what is the Prosper Accelerator program for you? How would you describe that to somebody that's coming in off the street here at Amelia Island?
So I would describe the Prosper Accelerator program as an opportunity to showcase the skills and talents of future leadership in the industry of restaurant and hospitality. I think it's an absolutely fantastic way to help build skill set competencies, showcase them, elevate them, while also giving them the opportunity to be exposed to multiple leaders at the executive level, which many of them are aspiring to. So my experience with it thus far is fantastic. Henny Penny was an initial founding sponsor.
Yep. So
we believe in it. We believe in what it can do for the accelerators and the industry.
That's great. And I was talking to somebody last night about it too. They said it's funny. There's these older, basically leaders already that are accelerators, and we're saying, look, it's the next generation leader. So I think we're selling ourselves a little short, and it's an implication they're not already leaders by being a Prosper Accelerator, but that's not the case. They are leaders, and I think the program is telling them, look, you should consider yourself the next CEO, the next C-suite person to get into the C-suite, and encouraging those people that might have some self-doubt, like, I don't think I could be in that position ever. This is the top of my career, to say, look, that you can go a little higher, and we need you to go higher.
So being in HR, I would say, I wouldn't use the word older. I would use more experienced or less experienced. Yeah. And that's exactly it. Meaning, just because you have maybe a particular title that it appears you're at a higher level, that doesn't necessarily mean you may have all the experiences, the competencies, and the things needed to really take you forward to that next level. So you may see somebody, which I have as an accelerator, maybe at a senior vice president level. It could be a situation where they just recently been promoted into that role, and there's still some things to learn, and they're a Prosper Accelerator to get exposure to the many different people at higher levels of leadership that could help them along their journey. So I just don't want us to look at the titles of people that are in the Accelerator program and just assume that, wow, they have this title, why are they in the Accelerator program? Well, again, it's about the exposure. It's about the opportunity to network and get a sense of what it's like to sit in the seat of a C-suite person. So there's still some cooking that has to go.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, and speaking of which, why did you get involved with Prosper to begin with? I mean, besides David calling you relentlessly, I mean, what motivated you, Henny Penny, to be involved, be here with us? It's incredible. We're grateful.
Absolutely. So that's a really easy one. The mission of what they're trying to do. If you take the concept of setting a better table, which is a beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah. I feel like that's resonated with people.
Yes.
Because I've heard it from multiple people. I mean, I thought it was, not the best. And then it's actually really reached people.
Oh my goodness.
Deep of like, yes, a better table from.
If you think about what it means to set a table,
Yeah.
you have your forks, your knife, your spoon, your plate. It like you're setting the table for a presentation to sit down and have the meal, but it has to be, if the table is not set, is the meal really going to be as great?
Right.
Is it going to be as pleasing? Maybe not. So that resonated with me in terms of setting a better course for the future, setting a better model, a better example of what we want things to look like. In this particular instance, we want things to be very diverse, inclusive. And diversity, that's a whole nother topic, means so many different things. We want the people that we're trying to cater to in the hospitality and the restaurant business is a very diverse population. Setting a table that have people mirror or reflect those we're trying to serve, to me, is setting a better table. So that resonated with Henny Penny and myself right away, and it was a no-brainer for us to get involved.
Great. And without going too much further too, could you call out your accelerators?
Yes. So thank you for doing that, Anthony. So this is our second year. Our first
That's gonna be my
accelerator
next
was
question.
Sheba
Is
Malik.
How long? Yeah, how long?
Sheba
you guys-
Malik is on the supply chain side for
Okay.
Henny Penny. And then Tawan Stoker is our accelerator for 2024. And he's on the well-being wellness side for Henny
Okay.
Penny.
Great. Well, that's awesome. You guys are involved and doing that, and it's great support. To turn the focus back on you a bit, and you gave some content to opening day. We actually spoke to the accelerators. The content was great. We're going to circle back. I'm going to have you share some of that on the podcast today. But what do you, how do you approach, well, let's start with you too. Your background, tell us your story. How did you learn this leadership? How did you get involved in the industry? And you had a great story. I wanted you to
Yes,
start on
yes.
that.
So thank you. I would say, and I really mean this, leadership came naturally for me. I'm the oldest of 5 boys.
You had to step up.
I had to step
Incredible.
up, and being transparent, single parent home.
Okay.
And so setting the example for my younger brothers was very, very important for me. But then, I was an athlete in high school. I was the point guard. So being in situations where I have to dictate, communicate, facilitate, lead others, just was a natural thing, starting in my home and then with sports. And then I got into the military post-college. Now, I was a college athlete as well. And then I got into ROTC and got commissioned as a second lieutenant. And that's a whole nother level of leadership, because now you're really in life and death situations.
Yep.
And truly
Back up a bit.
a life and death situation. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Before we get, that's going to be awesome. We're going to focus on that. But in college, so high school, you think it was starting in high school when you were playing sports.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find yourself in that leadership role? Were you gravitating towards that?
Absolutely.
In the sports?
I'm an extremely competitive person. I like to compete, and more specifically, I like to win. And that kind of drives you from a leadership standpoint, because to be able to win and compete, there's so many leadership qualities and characteristics to go into that. You have to be decisive. You have to be collaborative. You have to be able to communicate effectively. You have to make, adjustments. And all those things and many other things play into leadership. And I started to get that in high school. By the way, I went to an all-boys high school too. So
Okay.
it was extremely,
competitive.
extremely competitive.
What was your
high
sport?
school. So my sport was basketball.
Cool.
And a little
Okay.
plug for my high school. I went to a school at the time was called St. Joseph High School in Cleveland, Ohio, parochial Catholic.
No way. That's where my dad went.
I actually went there.
No way.
And it is
Crazy.
it's some of the people that are produced out of that high school, Heisman Trophy winner, Desmond Howard,
Wow.
Elvis Gerbach, Mike Golick, Used to
That's
be
not
on
my
Mike with
dad.
Mike in the morning. So
My dad didn't go Heisman trophies.
well, we had that. Clark Kellogg is the
That's
face of the
awesome.
NCAA right now. So we had those type of guys. So it was an extremely competitive environment. And if you were at a school like that, you were competing and winning, it made you want to be a leader.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hats off to your dad too, man.
Yeah. Well, it's so Cleveland. Yeah, I know
Yes.
Cleveland well.
That's
We've
where
been
I'm
back
from.
there a lot.
Yeah.
That
That is so ironic.
Yeah. So
crazy.
family's still living there and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a small world. So high school, college. Where'd you go to college?
Went to college at the University of Cincinnati,
Okay.
and that I was actually a walk-on basketball player, so that was
Okay.
even a little tougher.
Wow.
Yes.
But the confidence I had to walk on and compete with some of our players at that time, we had a couple McDonald All-Americans on the team, but again, felt very comfortable competing with them at that level. But clearly I knew the NBA wasn't in my future. So I decided to get into ROTC during
Okay.
the time I was at the University of Cincinnati, which
Okay.
led to my military, short
Okay.
military
So
career.
you went into the Army then after that? And the ROTC has some leadership programs
Absolutely.
too, right? So you kind of kept your journey going on
Yes.
this leadership. Did you find that valuable?
I found that to be extremely valuable. And even in ROTC as an undergraduate college student, they're preparing you to be a soldier. And people don't look at it this way, but the military is it's all about defending our freedoms, our securities, and unfortunately, fighting and war and killing happens with that. So you have to really be focused, again, decisive. There's a lot of training that goes on with that, but that is something I 100% enjoy doing, is learning leadership and how to lead troops and other people towards a common goal, which is the ultimate, and that's the for our freedoms of our country.
Yeah. And that is a theme here we're seeing from a lot of the executives. It seems
Yeah.
like they have some military background. And well, thank you for your service
thank you.
on that front. And but it really, I think, develops, like you said, it's life and death situation. My grandfather served too, and I forget if it was him or a friend asking if he was nervous in a situation.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, nobody's shooting back at me. So I can do this.
I tell you, the one thing about the military, outside of really driving the importance of effective communication, because if you communicate incorrectly or wrong, it is the difference between a life and death situation. However, the beauty of it is the military is intentionally redundant about what we do. So when you get in a situation that requires you to make a life and death situation, you don't even have to think about it.
Yeah.
You just do it.
It's instinctual at that
Yes.
point. Yeah.
So how did you get into the food service industry?
So that one is really, really a great question. It was a circulatory, do this, do that. Short story is this. Before I got into the food industry that I'm currently in now, I
Okay.
did have a stint at a food company, Nestle,
Okay. Very
and
good.
I did work at a beverage company, Pepsi.
Okay.
But I never thought I would end up in a situation now where we're Henny Penny. We are food equipment manufacturers, and our equipment is going into some of the best kitchens that we all grew up in: McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Chick-fil-A, Inspire Brands. So it was almost by mistake that I got into it. I was working at Boston Children's Hospital as
Okay.
the Chief Human Resource Officer
Okay.
there, Chief Human Resource and People Experience Officer. And then this thing called COVID hit. I was actually living in Cleveland, commuting to Boston
Okay.
weekly. And when COVID hit, I took a step back, went back home to Cleveland, started doing some consulting for a couple of different organizations called C-Suite Success.
Okay.
And then this opportunity became available at Henny Penny. I was immediately drawn to it because it allowed me to do all the things I love from a people standpoint.
Yeah.
Performance development, succession,
Yes.
talent acquisition, wellness and well-being, employee relations, all of that was there for me, and just turned out it was in the food food industry. Because
Yeah.
I honestly didn't know what Henny Penny was. I knew about the story Henny Penny, but I didn't know about the company
Right.
Henny Penny. But that's how I got started. That's how I got into it.
Cool. How long have you been there now?
2.5 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Now, I wanted to focus back a bit on the content you were sharing with the accelerators, and you were talking about a book. It's the Four Agreements. That's what I
Yes.
wrote down, right?
Yes.
Could you share some of that, what you're sharing with the accelerators, and how you recommend this book? And it might be a good takeaway for the
Absolutely.
listeners.
So I am just so curious and how should I say it? Just really am interested in the topic of leadership in general. So I love talking about it. I love studying about it. And one of the things about leadership, which I also learned in the military, is before you can truly lead others, you need to be able to lead self. And my topic that day was about self-awareness, which if you don't have that, knowing your own strengths and weaknesses, it's almost very difficult to lead others. And I brought up that book, Anthony, because I think the Four Agreements also drives self-awareness of an individual. And those Four Agreements are simply this: be impeccable with your word,
Okay.
don't take things personal,
Okay.
don't make assumptions, and always do your best. You have to be pretty self-aware to understand those things, to be able to do those things, to be impeccable with your word. What did I say? How did I say it? Did it come across right? Did it have the right impact? Did the intent come across? If you are impeccable with your word, then you probably may not have to worry about those things. So be impeccable with your word. That's, to me, also a part of self-awareness. Don't make assumptions. We all do. I am guilty of it. But the more I really got into reading that book and really just trying to take things at surface value, we're going to be a little curious and ask some questions from time to time, but don't always assume that something is different than what or how it's coming across. So that, I thought, was a self-awareness thing. Don't take things personal, right? It's not always about us.
Right.
No matter how much we love
That's our
ourselves.
instinct, is that everything's about us.
Yes.
But it's like, no, they did that because they're focused on themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or they did it because they were thinking about many other people, not just themselves. It's not about you. And then the last one, always do your best. If you really approach anything with your all, doing the best you can possibly do, using a sports analogy or a military analogy, leaving it all on the field or all on the court, you can live with that. So always do your best. If you win or lose, if you can say, I did my best, I gave it my all, I can live with that. So those Four Agreements are something I try to incorporate into my daily life and wanted to share with the accelerators.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome
amazing.
takeaway. Yeah, I'm gonna get the book, take a look at it. Maybe we could have you back on the podcast. And
That would be
keep
great.
talking.
Go through the book.
So, and then before we started, you were sharing you have been on a few podcasts too.
Yes.
Speaking about leadership, it's something that's very important to you and dear to you. So yeah, what's driving you to kind of keep sharing the message here at this point?
Man, so leadership is one of the most talked about, most debated, most complicated things that people that's always on the mind of folks. And here's the other thing, most of us in a leadership position, we raised our hand to do that. So that's an important thing too. So, because nobody is forcing you to do that job or play that role of leadership, because it comes with a lot of accountability, a lot of responsibility. And I also mentioned that as a leader, you have to bear the burden of visibility because you are right there. People are watching you. And you may recall I referenced Denzel Washington in Training Day.
Yep.
And there were 3 things that he said in that movie Training Day. And one is, everything is a test. Someone's always watching you, and nothing is as it seems. That also fits into the leadership model and being self-aware. So the question was, what drives me, or why am I so interested in it? Because there's so many of us trying to do it, and unfortunately, we don't do it right. We don't do it effectively as we could. And I've certainly have not been the best leader sometimes that I could have been, but because of those life lessons, the military, the studying and the reading, being self-aware enough to go back and look at the mistakes I've made, decisions that I've made, how I could have communicated better, it just drives me to try to help other people not make some of those same mistakes. And if I could somehow share a blueprint or provide some insight to helping someone be a better leader, we're all better for it.
Yeah.
Gets back to setting a better table too.
Yeah.
If we could set a better table, model the way, set an example
I love it.
for someone else, I think we all benefit from it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that was going to be my next question of, like, as far as your career, what has been maybe a high and a low, and how did you navigate that?
I would clearly say one of the lowest points for me from a leadership standpoint was when I was in the military as a second lieutenant.
Okay.
We have these things called field training exercises where different people in the leadership role, we rotate through an assimilation process of a hostile situation. And I was leading, at the time, I was playing the role of company commander, leading my company through a hostile environment. And again, one of the key things of leadership is communication and decision making. Well, this particular day, to just cut to the chase, I was leading my company through a hostile situation that involved opposing forces.
Okay.
And I got my company halfway through this area, and man, everything, bombs started going off. We were under attack. We were being shot at. We're under heavy fire. I literally froze, and it seemed like it was hours because they're observing you while you're doing this, and then they do this thing called index or stop, and then they'll evaluate you. And it was a general, a colonel, a battalion commander was saying, "Lieutenant Stover, what went wrong here?" And I was trying to explain to him all the different things. And he said, "No, what went wrong here?" And I started saying it again, a third time. He said, "I'm going to ask you again, Lieutenant Stover, what went wrong here?" It was clear I wasn't answering the question in a way that he thought. He said, "What went wrong here is you failed to make a decision."
Okay.
He said, in situations like this, it doesn't matter if you make the wrong decision or the right decision. What's most important is that you make a decision, and you failed to do that.
Wow.
I never forgot that. So that was probably my lowest.
Okay.
And it stuck with me. It is stuck with me to this day.
It's
And to your
probably
point,
one
it's
of
like-
your greatest learning.
Absolutely.
Right. Analysis paralysis. You always hear that of just like, no, you need to make a choice and go.
Absolutely. And I
Okay.
try to instill that in my kids to this day. Make a decision. Getting back to it's not all about us. Unbelievably, we think we're in control of stuff, and we're not.
Right.
Most of the time, things are going to turn out the way they're supposed to turn out.
Okay.
So make a decision. My son, believe it or not, he says, "You know what, Dad? If you make the wrong decision, everything is going to be okay. If you make the right decision, everything's going to be okay. So why worry about it?" And that's my son, Devin. So my point is,
You're
just
like,
make a
thank
decision.
you, son.
Make a decision. So my highest point,
Yes.
I think, I've thank God I've had a couple of very, very high moments. I think one of my most significant ones is when I was at Cleveland Clinic. I had left Pepsi, which is a beverage company, the furthest thing probably away from a healthcare organization.
Right.
And I took that role, and Toby Cosgrove was the CEO at the time. He's a renowned heart surgeon and a Army veteran as well. He was the CEO at Cleveland Clinic. And I was asking him, why did they hire me? Because I thought that I won't say qualified for the job, but I knew nothing about healthcare. And he said, "That's exactly why we hired you, because we want to place a focus on the people experience. And I said, that's great, but why at a healthcare? He said, because the people experience will drive the patient experience.
Okay.
And once I kind of understood that and got into Cleveland Clinic, I worked with my team and we put together this thing called the Cleveland Clinic Experience. The reason that's one of my highest moments is because that still exists at Cleveland Clinic today. And believe it or not, it's also a revenue generating stream for Cleveland Clinic today, where they invite other people from other healthcare organizations in to go through this thing called the Cleveland Clinic Experience. And it's all about how to drive a better patient experience. So that was one of my highest moments, that my team and I were able to develop something that's still in place today. I left Cleveland Clinic in probably 2011.
Okay.
And they're still utilizing that
amazing.
program.
That's amazing.
It's something that I really appreciate. And a lot of leadership development is part of that patient experience process.
That's amazing. That was really insightful for the hospital to bring somebody in not from the medical side. And I think that's critical. You know, as an attorney, it's nice to have somebody else, you know, on legal issues, how to run a law firm, whatever. Somebody, an outside perspective to
Absolutely.
look in and see what.
And that's what he said. That's one of the reasons we're hiring you, not because you understand healthcare, but you've worked at organizations who has done a great job on driving people. So like he was referencing the Nestle's, the GEs, the Pepsis,
the Army,
which he was also, I found out afterwards that he was a war veteran.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. That's great. Any other questions, Justine?
I don't think so.
Great. Well, really appreciate your time coming here to the
thank you so
podcast,
much.
and hope you're having a good Prosper Forum. But I do want to ask one last question, and we'll let you get back to the content here. But you know, Henny Penny and you've got a lot of different options for conferences and events. You know, why do you keep coming back to the Prosper Forum?
So our chairman, Rob Conley, actually, you asked me why did I go all in on Henny Penny. Actually, it was our chairman, Rob Conley. When I told him about what David was trying to do, and David wanted to meet with Rob and I, and then David explained it to him, Rob didn't hesitate to say, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
Why do we keep coming back? Because of what we believe this is going to do to impact the food industry, as well as the hospitality and restaurant industry. For us, for the equipment that we make and manufacture at Henny Penny, well, there's an opportunity for us to better partner with the folks that are attending this conference, to set that better table, to also have maybe some of our products at Henny Penny, our pressure fryers, our open fryers, our combi ovens, go into some of these restaurants and businesses. And again, not just the restaurants, hotel industry. We also have this other part of our business called Woodstone, where we make these huge ovens. So we keep coming back, not only to help set a better table, but to hopefully have some influence and have people see who Henny Penny is, and hopefully use our equipment in the various different stores and restaurants. But Rob was all in on it, and it makes sense for us to come back here and network with a lot of our partners that we serve, our customers that we serve.
Great.
Well, we are grateful for sure. Thank you so much for
being
here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
This is awesome.
Yes.
Thank you for tuning in to this insightful episode with Reggie Stover. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and follow us as we continue this journey, bringing you inspiring guests and powerful stories. See you next time here on the Prosper Brief.